All right, Ravens flock, you know what time it is. So in less than 12 hours, the Ravens will be taking on the Miami Dolphins at the bank for the battle of the 1 seed. We win that one, not only do we clinch the AFC North, but we do get the 1 seed and the first round bye. So a lot is at stake here. If we lose this game, we're going to need some help for the 1 seed because we'll have to win next week against the Steelers and hope the Bills beat the Dolphins for us to still get the 1 seed. But you're not looking to get any help. Why would you want help from anybody when you control your own destiny? Win and you get the 1 seed. This is going to be in your house. It's going to be in your building. You know what's at stake. Get the job done. I feel the Ravens need to look at this as a must-win game. Come into this with the mindset of this being a playoff game. Because right now, if you take a look at the injury report, the Ravens are really banged up. So are the Dolphins. Both these teams are incredibly banged up. They both desperately need this first round bye because a lot of their guys are banged up. For the Dolphins, they've got several offensive linemen. They got several of their offensive linemen that are banged up. They have Jalen Waddle, who's banged up. In fact, he's not even playing. He's been reported out. Raheem Mostert is banged up. There's been some reports that came out a couple hours ago that says he's most likely expected to not play. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But they may come into the game with several offensive linemen out, no Jalen Waddle, and no Raheem Mostert. That is major for them. That team is banged up just as much as we are, if not more. So they definitely want the number 1 seed to get that first round bye and get that rest for all these players that are banged up. But we don't want to give them that. Why? Because we have the advantage here. Baltimore can get an extra week if they win here. See, Baltimore has the best record in football right now. If they're able to get the victory here, week 18 becomes another bye week to utilize. And you got guys like Kyle Hamilton who's dealing with a knee injury. Thankfully, everybody that's on the injury report are only dealing with minor injuries. They're not extremely banged up to the point where they'll miss several weeks. It's not that severe. So we are happy for that. We are thankful for that. But we also don't want these guys to head into the playoffs still being banged up. The best way they can recover is by getting the proper rest they need. And how do you get the proper rest you need? Heading into the playoffs? Well, you get the first round bye. If Baltimore is able to close out this game and get the victory, week 18 becomes another bye week for them. Now, of course, you could still look to play some of your starters. That could be a different conversation we have if we win. We will discuss that next week if the Ravens do claim the 1 seed today. But if you're able to get that, knowing the guys that are injured right now, week 18 against the Steelers, everybody that's on the injury report that's banged up and dealing with something, they don't have to play that game. You can give Hamilton extra time to rest. You can give those other guys extra time to rest and recover. They can use week 18 to recover, and then they can use the first round bye to recover so that by the time they get to the divisional round, everybody's going to be nearly 100%. Your guys that were banged up will be relatively healthy, and that puts you in the proper position to now fully compete at 100% or near 100% because you had the time to rest and recuperate. Not to mention, getting the first round bye makes it a whole lot more easier for you to be able to get to the Super Bowl. It's easier to get to Super Bowl when you have to get 2 wins as opposed to getting 3. It doesn't guarantee it. We've had the 1 seed before. 2019, we blew it that first playoff game. So we're not guaranteed to get anything. But if you can put yourself in a favorable situation and position to where the playoffs go through your house and you play one less playoff game, obviously you're going to want that. So Baltimore has to come into this game with the mentality of this being a must-win. Treat it like a playoff game. Treat it like a playoff game. In fact, some of the games we've played so far over these last couple of weeks, we've been treating it like a playoff game. Last week against the Niners, that felt like a playoff game. It looks like the Ravens treated that like a playoff game. The week before when we took on the Jaguars, it felt like they treated that like a playoff game. The Ravens have been treating some of these matchups like playoff games. They said that weeks ago, and it looks like they continue to have that same mindset. So they're probably going to come into this game with the mindset of this being a playoff game. Especially because there's a good possibility if both teams get into the playoffs and stay relatively healthy, they may end up matching up potentially in the AFC Championship game. Who knows? Assuming both teams can win their games when they get into the postseason. We will have to wait and see if that ends up being the case. But this game needs to be a game that the Ravens get. It's a must-win. Now, of course, it's not a must-win in a literal term in terms of you must win this to make the playoffs. No, we secured a playoff spots week 15? Yeah, we secure Yeah, it was week 15 after we beat the Jaguars, I believe. So yeah, we secured a playoff spot weeks ago. So we're not worried about trying to get into the postseason. If the worst case scenario was to happen, Baltimore's still going to be in the playoffs. But you're fighting with the Browns for the division, and apparently we're fighting with them and the Dolphins for the #1 seed. All of this ends if Baltimore wins today. You win this game against the Dolphins, you win the AFC North, you get the #1 seed. Week 18, you play some of your starters a quarter, a half, and everybody else that's dealing with injuries and banged up, you rest them. That puts you in the best possible position to be able to compete at near 100% when you get to the divisional round. So that's the mindset the Ravens have to have. If you don't want to use the mindset of a playoff game, use it like it's a must-win game. Let's look at this as a scenario where the Ravens have to win if they want to make the playoffs. It's a win and you're in type of situation. That is the type of mindset Baltimore has to have. They're coming into our house, trying to steal the 1 seed from us. We have been working so hard this season to get to this point. We saw this team last week in San Francisco send a message to the NFL. They sent a huge message that the Ravens are a serious threat. The best way to solidify that is by taking down another serious threat, one in your own conference. Take them down, get the 1 seed, get these guys the rest, and prepare yourself for the playoffs in the proper way. That is what we need to do. Now, of course, in terms of this game, I don't exactly know who's going to play. There was a bunch of people on the injury report. Now, a majority of them were obviously, taken off in terms of their status. They're obviously going to play. But I think we had 5 or 6 individuals that were questionable. Of course, the two that stand out is Zay Flowers and Kyle Hamilton. I don't think Kyle Hamilton's going to play, but I wouldn't be surprised because I didn't think he was going to play against the Niners. Or was it against the Niners or against the Jazz? I think it was against the Jags. I didn't expect him to play against the Jaguars, but he played against the Jaguars. And then he played against the Niners, and there was no problem there. So knowing this guy, he's a warrior. He may end up playing against the Dolphins, knowing the severity and how much is at stake here. The battle of the 1 seed. He may be out there. Zay Flowers, I expect him to play. We'll see if that's going to be the case. Of course, the inactive list is going to come out about half an hour before the game starts, so we'll see who's on that list and who's not playing. I'm pretty sure Armour Davis and who else would be on that list? I saw Zeitler on that list too. I don't know if he's playing as well. I think they also had him as questionable. But I know guys like Armour Davis isn't going to play. And you're going to be missing a couple guys most likely. But hopefully, you get to say Flowers out there. We'll just see. Whether you're playing or not, at the end of the day, whoever is not playing, rest up. We'll see you later. Whoever is playing, get out there, do your job, get it done, and get this 1 seed. Baltimore, now is not the time to collapse. Now is not the time to fumble the ball. Now is not the time to mess up. You have made your mistakes throughout this season. The mistakes you made in the Colts game. The mistakes you made in the Steelers game. The mistakes you made in our building against the Browns when you blew that 14-point lead. We have fumbled the bag a couple times in those games. And it feels like the team has finally learned from that because they're closing out games. They're playing relatively clean offensive football. They're being ferocious defensively, and they're closing out football games. Something they were struggling with in those games. They're closing out. Do what you need to do. Get the job done. If we can get it done today on New Year's Eve and clinch the 1 seed in our building, Baltimore will be set up to have their guys as healthy as possible come playoff time. So we'll see what happens at the bank. In less than 12 hours, Ravens, Dolphins going at it at the bank. We'll see what happens. With that being said, that's all I've got. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching, and I'm out of here, man. Peace out.